Good afternoon, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session of Rumination with Andrew. Thank you so much for joining as we are about to discuss a very important topical matter. And this morning we are going to look at some very important information here. I'm using my phone, so I had to be checking if things are, you can hear me. I'm not sure if you're hearing me. I did, record a video previously and I wasn't hearing a sound. So I wasted all my time and energy in doing that. But let us look this morning at some important matters. We have here that drone, this is coming from the Jamaica Observer, drone surveillance, Sligoville residents say cops using flying robots to watch them, police unaware of that. Now we have also that the Jamaicans are using security high-tech apparatuses, devices to protect their homes. So that's something very important. And a survey here also carried by the Jamaica Observer suggesting that the crime rate is not down as our politicians, particularly Andrew Holness, has been suggesting. Now we have here drone surveillance. Sligoville residents say cops using flying robots to watch them, police unaware. So we have, let us continue with what the Observer here is reporting. Residents of Sligoville, St. Catherine are convinced that law enforcers are using drones to watch their every move, but the police have said they have no knowledge of this. That, however, has done little to allay the fears of the residents, as they say the surveillance has become an unsettling aspect of life in their community, which was ironically Jamaica's first free village. One resident told the Jamaica Observer that the drones typically appear around 7 a.m. and remain until about 10 p.m., flying low and closely monitoring individuals. That is amazing. That is amazing that we have a situation in which residents are being surveilled in the name of national security. And many of you will say, yes, then we have to protect our people. But oftentimes we cannot trust government because the government are or is involved in nefarious activities, a lot of times with criminal elements. We have to be aware of that. And that is why even the Gleaner suggested that our politicians are the gangs of Gordon House. And it was not only symbolic, it was not only metaphorical. A lot of them are involved in criminal nefarious activities, including our business class, our business elites. We have to become aware of these things. It's a well-known thing, one man whose identity is being withheld said. Another resident also expressed deep concern, claiming to have witnessed heavily disguised police conducting raids and allegedly using excessive force against young men in the area. The drone, flies over the community center in Sligoville, then moves to James Mountain and just stays steady, watching wherever we are. The man whose identity is also being withheld stated, then the next day you see a lot of police masked up. So I think they are using it to see our movement and what we are doing. So the people's movements are being surveilled, are being watched at every step of the way. In fact, that's a long time to be surveilling any community per day. They arrive at 7 a.m. and they leave at 10 p.m. at night. It means therefore that you are surveilled daily and every movement, because people generally sleep at 10 p.m. There's nothing that you do in the day that is not being watched by the government. Now, these are allegations, we don't know, but the government is in denial, but the residents are saying that's true. Now, whom do you believe? That's up to you. When they come, they tell you exactly what you were doing last night. They are specific. They know who came and who didn't, the resident added. He linked the purported surveillance and increased police presence in the area to the recent deaths of Othniel Loban, a notorious figure in Jamaica's criminal underworld, who was killed last year because the police and the government suggested that he was involved in criminal elements. I mean, a controversial figure, the likes of Christopher Coke. But that was it, and they killed him, and the residents also were upset. They were protesting, suggesting that he was the one who sent their children to school. Not sure if you remember him. While Loban was primarily associated with areas like Spanish Town, Eltham Park, and Mountain View, the resident believes that his past ties to Sligoville have unfairly resulted in heightened police scrutiny of their community. So because they were protesting, it seems, against what the police did in terms of, fatally getting rid of Othniel Loban, the police have decided to surveil the people. But who were the bosses and who controlled Othniel Loban? That's the question we need to ask. That is the question we need to ask, because there are allegations that he was involved with the Member of Parliament in that area. And I will not call her name, but I think that you know whom I'm talking about. Now, because the person that they killed recently comes from this area, they are using it to put everybody in the same category, the man said. They are tarnishing the community and targeting young men. That is something that is very sad. Now, one woman described instances in which the police, wearing masks and without badge numbers displayed, allegedly used force to extract information from young men. So oftentimes when the police want to find, they are researching a matter and they're lazy, they don't want to get to the bottom of things, they will forge people's identities and torture people to say what they want them to say, and then they come to you saying that these are the facts. The US does that too. Did it in Iraq and many other places where you find US military bases. So here we find Jamaica is operating with a similar tactic, is using a similar tactic, I should say. When they come, they ask for certain people, and when the residents say they don't know them, the police beat them, she alleged. They hit them in their stomachs with guns. These are innocent people. And oftentimes, the innocent people are the ones who die. The ones sometimes that they're saying are criminals, as we're seeing in the United States right now. A lot of times, they're not the real deal here. Right? They're not the real deal. Sometimes they're even in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then they're caught and they're killed. And the police say that everything is solved. Didn't we hear this when Christopher Doodles Coke was, deported to the United States, that everything now was because he was the drug kingpin of the Caribbean of Jamaica? And because he was a major criminal, then crime rate would have gone down significantly. And for a few days, because the security forces were on the streets, there was a joint effort between the Jamaica military and the Jamaica police force. And crime was in fact down for some time, but it had nothing to do with the fact that they had taken away Christopher Doodles Coke, because crime in Jamaica is a business, it's an industry. And we would have to uproot that industry, which comprises politicians and business elites, financial elites. The resident believes that police are unfairly targeting youth with no real connection to the former One Order gang leader. They keep saying these little boys know him, but they don't. These are 17-year-olds, and this man was over 40 and left here in the 20s. If anyone knows him, it's the older men, but they aren't the ones being targeted, she alleged. So they are targeting young men. And they're not going to take on the criminals, because the criminals is going to box them. Right? So they are afraid of the real criminals, so they are going to go after the alleged softies, the one who will not pose a threat to them. Right? Because the criminals in Jamaica are so brutal. Right? They're so aggressive that I'm sure a lot of the policemen are afraid of them. And they also have access to very powerful weapons. So it's best for the police, to attack young, innocent men, those who do not pose a threat to their security, and pretend as if they're trying to put a dent on crime. This is the sort of deception that we're seeing being practiced in Jamaica. Right now, the boys don't even want to stay in their community. When the police come, they don't know if they should run or stand up, she added. If they run, the police say they're guilty of something, but they are running because they don't want to be beaten. And that's slavery, because if the police, if they're using drones at 7 a.m., they're coming into your community at 7 a.m., and then they're leaving at 10 p.m., that's a long time to be in one's community, right? And every time I move to go to the shop or to go anywhere, I'm going to be attacked, I'm going to be apprehended, I'm going to be stopped by a policeman or a woman. Now, this is not liberty at all. This is slavery. According to the resident, the police are not like before. They say they are the cleanup squad. They're a cleanup squaddy, and they have come to clean up. And cleaning up means violating the constitutional rights of Jamaicans. Clean up means to violate the constitutional rights of the people, the residents who live in this community. The residents say they've reported the matters, but nothing has been done. Right? Nothing has been done because they're not interested. However, when the Sunday Gleaner visited Sligoville Police Station, the police said they are unaware of any drones in the area. They always see that. Didn't they see that there were no drones when Christopher Dudley's coke was being taken, when they had that war between the state and Tivoli Gardens, and the use of drones were used? When I went to Jamaica, all Jamaicans were saying, no, there were not any sign of any drones, the people are lying. And it was the New Yorker in the United States, a paper in the United States, a left-wing paper in the United States, which brought that story that drones were being used, American war machines were being used in Jamaica at the time of the Tivoli Gardens incursion. Jamaica was not at war with the United States, but the United States was using war equipment during that war, during that incursion. It wasn't even a war. And now we're seeing the same thing being played out in the United States, where the United States is waging a war against Venezuelan gangs. And say it's a war. It's a war against the Tren de Aragua, that gang that hails from Venezuela. And as a result of that, it's using that war, that very phony war, against violating the rights of Americans, citizens. Right? We've got to be careful. We've got to be aware. We've got to look out. We've got to be vigilant. Because if not, these people are going to violate all our rights that we have. If we have any left there in Jamaica, by the way. They also said they have not received any reports of residents being harassed by police, which was also confirmed by head of the St. Catherine North Police Division, Superintendent Hopton Nicholson. Listen to what he's saying. Senior Superintendent of Police Stephanie Lindsay, head of the Constabulary Communications Network, also said she's not aware of drones being used in the area and was unable to comment on whether the use of the unmanned vessels is a common practice for police when conducting operations. Now, they're going to use the tactic as what they use in the United States, that it's in the interest of national security that we don't know everything that happens. So they can lie to you, and the lie is excusable because that's in the interest of national security. They can't divulge what is happening because they are the persons in charge of our security. And how can they tell us what is happening? Because it's going to divulge important information to criminals. And you ask, who are the criminals? Who are the criminals? That is the question that we should be asking ourselves. However, the Jamaican Constabulary Force had on previous occasions reported that it continues to use drones to offer aerial support in its operation activities on the ground as part of its crime fighting strategy. In 2022, the JCF reported that its drone team is trained in the operation of the devices in counter surveillance. So that's interesting. That is interesting. That is interesting. The fact that they're entering people's community at 7 a.m. and leaving at 10 p.m. suggests that this is an entire control of the people's lives. Yeah? So who's going to make sure that this is not happening? Who is going to defend the rights of Jamaicans living in that area, in Sligoville? Huh? Who is going to defend their rights? Right? Now, we have here the whole matter of Jamaicans also using high-tech apparatuses, devices to protect their homes. And I'm very, very cautious about that. Even though it might look innocent and it is very convenient to be watching your homes from wherever you are, whether you're abroad or you're in Jamaica, it can come back to haunt you because you are also being surveilled while they're surveilling you, while you're surveilling them rather, while you're surveilling your home and you're trying to protect your home, the powers that be are also surveilling you. So while you're using it, you have to be careful where you put cameras. You might put cameras in your bathroom, in your bedrooms, and you are being watched and you don't know whom you're being watched by. Right? We have to be careful. And then, even your emails, we know that these things can be easily hacked by hackers. And there's some very dangerous hackers out there. Dangerous hackers out there. And you can be in your bedroom having an intimate sort of, occasion when you're being watched. And then you find whatever you were doing all over the internet. You've got to be careful about these devices. It makes me now not wanting to go anywhere because your every movement is being watched. What if you're using the bathroom? Who is in the bathroom with you? Is there a camera somewhere above the toilet? Right? It's making me actually becoming now very cautious of wanting to go to people's homes or even to go to business places because you don't know where the cameras are. There has been an increase in the number of Jamaican households using technological devices such as cameras, alarm systems, and electronic gates to secure their property, a recently published 2023 study has revealed. Now, from a superficial perspective, it looks good and it looks like you are secured. But if you understand what is happening in the world of surveillance, you understand that it's more enslaving you than protecting you. Even our phones that we have are not necessarily protecting us. I go to, for example, supermarkets and, I never turn my information on and they're asking, how was it at the supermarket? I did not want them to know that I was at that supermarket, but they're asking me, how was your moment? How was your time spent at that supermarket? It means, therefore, everywhere I go with my cell phone, I can be surveilled. And the authorities, the powers that be, can know where I am if they want to snatch me. And it's not that I'm doing anything bad or illegal. It's just that you don't have to be engaged in any illegal activities to be a person of interest to the authorities, to our government. You don't. And if you watch what is happening carefully in the United States, you'll see that the citizens there are being surveilled. And that's one of the reasons why Columbia University has to actually capitulate to the Trump administration and is now violating the rights of their students. And not only Columbia University, but all universities in the United States are going to be doing that. As a matter, and note that they're going back to April 2024 and not to present. They can go back because they can use the cameras. And I'm sure that Columbia has cameras on its campuses, and it can be able to unmask people who might have been involved in the pro-Palestine student protests on these campuses. And when your face is detected, then they are going to either expel you, suspend you, or even revoke your very degrees. And they are suggesting that these people are lunatics and that they are terrorists. Okay? So I hope you understand that. That's so a lot of these surveillance might seem to be that you are being protected by your government. But the same government is going to exploit the same surveillance that you think is is used or is being used as a means of protection. You're going to realize that it's going to be used as a means of control, as a means of torture. And you've got to be careful. According to the Statistical Institute of Jamaica's 2023 Jamaica's National Crime Victimization Survey report, the use of security cameras in households made a noticeable jump from 4.3% in 2019 to 12.7% in 2023. So that's quite a bit of a percentage increase. So Jamaicans are using surveillance apparatuses, devices to protect themselves. And we know it's understood. Don't get me wrong now. I am not condemning you, because I perhaps would try to do something to protect myself, also and my family. But we have to also be aware of the consequences of using these apparatuses. Don't be fooled by what you see, and because it seems convenient, you think that it is what you have to do. And many people are just following the flow, they're just following the current. They do what their friends do, they do what their family members do. They do not research for themselves, they do not understand the lessons of history, of how nations were surveilled, and how the government and the private sector were often in cahoots with the levels of control that they were imposing on society, right? There's a lot of ignorance in our world, a lot of ignorance. It's very difficult now to even have a basic conversation with people, even people who say they have PhDs and masters and, advanced degrees, professional degrees, do not have the intelligence to know that these things are dangerous. Now, let's look at another story that the Jamaica Observer brought here this morning, that survey finds perception of crime increased despite reported declines. So Jamaicans are suggesting that crime has not decreased, and they are the real deal, because they are the ones who have to suffer the brunt of the increase in crime and violence. Despite police statistics showing that Jamaica has seen a reduction in major crimes, a recent survey has revealed that the majority of respondents have a perception that the problem has increased. The problem has not decreased, it has increased. According to the Statistical Institute of Jamaica's 2023 Jamaica National Crime Victimization Survey report, what a long word, Jamaicans 16 years and older living in a private dwelling during the time of the survey were asked whether they believed that crime had increased, remained the same, or decreased in 4 distinct geographic locations: community or district, town or city, parish, and Jamaica at large. A total of 88.6% of respondents received an increase in crime in Jamaica when comparing 2022 to 2023. This represents a growing perception of a rise in criminal activities in Jamaica, as 76.5% of respondents had the perception that crime increased when comparing 2018 to 2019. Additionally, 67.8% of respondents perceived that crime increased in their parish in 2023, up from 56.2% who perceived an increase in crime in 2019. Towns and cities were also perceived to have an increase in crime by 47.8% of respondents, an uptick from the 37.9% who perceived an increase in crime in 2019. So this is what is happening in Jamaica. We hear our politicians saying one thing, and the residents, the people, are saying another. Right? This is what is happening. Now, whom do we believe? I would perhaps believe the people. I would not believe anything coming out of the Jamaican government's mouth. So I would believe the people. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hope that you have learned something from this video. Remember now to like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment at the end of the video. See you in another one. Ciao.